Federal passenger car safety standards for 1994 update the requirements for occupant crash protection and child restraint systems. In order to meet these requirements, there have been some changes made to Chrysler vehicle restraint systems. Technological advancements have also led to some new engineering features. Hello, and welcome to Mastertech. Because of the changes being made this year, we thought it would be a good idea to look at passive restraint systems on all of the 1994 Chrysler vehicles and answer a few key questions while we're at it, such as what type of system is each vehicle using? How are these systems different from one another? And how do you service them? We'll also cover what's new, including a single-point impact detection system on the Minivan that uses only one sensor, a hybrid airbag inflator on some passenger side airbags, motorized shoulder belts for the front seat passenger on vehicles without a passenger side airbag, and a driver's side airbag on Colt Summit vehicles using a two-sensor impact detection system. By the way, you'll notice something different in this month's reference book. On the inside front cover, you'll find the questions we'll be asking during the video. Be sure to write down the answers in the reference book as you watch the video. But remember, you'll still need to answer the 10 questions at the end of the reference book as part of the Mastertech Award. Improper service or maintenance of any component of an airbag restraint system could lead to personal injury or death. Following service procedures closely and heeding all safety precautions is critical. We've talked about this in a number of Mastertech sessions, but it's critical to disconnect and isolate the battery negative cable whenever you work on any airbag component. Once the cable is isolated, you must wait 2 minutes before disconnecting any airbag system components to allow time for the system capacitors to discharge. Always use the procedures provided in the service manual for removing and replacing airbag components. When you work on a vehicle that has a deployed airbag, replace all airbags and any airbag components that are damaged. Also, replace any components, even if undamaged, where the service manual specifies that an undamaged component should be replaced or a diagnostic trouble code exists that requires its replacement. And never try to pry open the door of an undeployed airbag. When an airbag module is removed, it should be carried with the trim cover pointing away from your body. When it's placed on the workbench, the driver airbag trim cover, or passenger airbag door, should be facing up to minimize movement in case of an accidental deployment. The brackets on some modules require that a block of wood be placed under them so that the cover faces up. When you install a new airbag, be sure that no foreign objects fall inside the instrument panel around the airbag module. Fasteners and other small objects could become projectiles if the airbag deploys after installation. And caution the customer not to place any objects over the airbag door or steering wheel. These can also become projectiles if the airbag deploys. Following these safety tips and others provided in the service manual will help ensure not only your safety, but the customer's safety and the proper operation of the airbag system as well. Before we move on, I'd like you to answer this review question. The first step prior to working on any airbag system component is to disconnect the A, clock spring, B, battery negative cable, C, airbag control module, D, powertrain control module. The answer is B. The battery negative cable must be disconnected and isolated before working on any airbag components. The first Chrysler vehicles with a passenger side airbag were the Concorde, Intrepid, Vision, New Yorker, and LHS. Vehicles with passenger side airbags added in 1994 are the Minivan, LeBaron Convertible, and Stealth. The passenger side airbag on the Minivan is a new design with a hybrid inflator. Most airbags use only pyrotechnic materials to produce the inflating gas. This hybrid inflator combines combustion of a pyrotechnic material to pierce the pressurized container and the release of compressed gas to inflate the airbag. With the hybrid inflator, a compressed gas cylinder has been added, along with a pressure switch to monitor the pressure in the cylinder. If the pressure in the cylinder goes out of spec, the airbag readiness lamp illuminates and a diagnostic trouble code is generated. You'll have to replace the entire airbag module. The pressure switch requires an additional two-way connector at the airbag module, separate from the two-way connector for the squib. The passenger airbag on the minivan can be removed without disassembling the instrument panel. Here are some highlights of that removal procedure. Always disconnect and isolate the battery negative cable whenever beginning any airbag system component removal, and wait 2 minutes before removing any airbag component. To remove a non-deployed module, begin by disconnecting the glove box door check straps and allow the door to open all the way. Remove the 4 bolts attaching the module to the bracket. Locate the access hole at the center of the module mounting bracket and use a large flat blade screwdriver to pry the module up. Unsnap the door from the trim pad and lift it away from the snaps. Hold onto the door and raise the module from the opening. Protect the trim pad with a shop towel and rest the module on the trim pad. Disconnect the squib connector and the pressure switch connector. Now you can remove the module from the vehicle. For installation, reverse the previous procedures using the Mopar specified components and fasteners and torque the attaching bolts to 50 inch-pounds. The Concorde, Intrepid, Vision, New Yorker, and LHS will also get the hybrid airbag on the passenger side as a running change sometime in the 1994 model year. How will you tell the difference? You'll be able to tell by the connector on the side of the airbag module. Hybrid airbags have two-way connectors, a squib connector and a pressure switch connector. Old-style airbags have only one two-way connector, the squib connector. For a description of passenger airbag removal on the Concorde, Intrepid, Vision, New Yorker, and LHS, see the February 1993 Mastertech. The 1994 LeBaron convertible is the only other domestic Chrysler vehicle to get a passenger side airbag. It uses a pyrotechnic inflator. The 1994 Dodge Stealth is also equipped with a passenger side airbag with a pyrotechnic inflator. The service manuals for these vehicles give you complete procedures for passenger side airbag removal. Before we move on to the new minivan airbag system, I've got a question for you. What type of switch has been added to monitor the new hybrid airbag module? A, ignition switch. B, safing switch. C, impact switch. D, pressure switch. The answer is D. A pressure switch has been added to monitor the pressure in the compressed gas cylinder. In the 1994 model year minivan, a single-point impact detection system replaces the 3-sensor system used in previous model year minivans. This single-point system, used only in the minivan, senses impact electronically instead of mechanically. Impact is detected using an accelerometer that generates an electrical signal when it senses an impact. This element is similar to that used in a knock sensor. In contrast, the 3-sensor system uses mechanical means to detect impact. For example, mechanical impact sensors use a rolling contact which moves forward under impact, completing an electrical circuit. This single-point system eliminates all wiring and sensors in the engine compartment. The entire airbag system is contained inside the instrument panel. The electronic impact sensor is housed in the airbag control module, or ACM. The ACM on the minivan is located below the center console above the body control module. Because a single sensor in the ACM can activate the airbags, never remove the ACM without first disconnecting and isolating the battery negative cable. Before we move on, here's a review question. How is impact detected in a single-point airbag system? A, electronically. B, mechanically. C, hydraulically. The answer is A. A single-point system detects impact electronically. Beginning in 1990, all U.S.-built Chrysler passenger cars were equipped with driver airbags. These airbag systems have not changed, nor have the sensors used to activate them. For 1994, the Dodge Ram pickup has a new driver's side airbag with a 3-sensor impact detection system and a pyrotechnic inflator. The 1994 Dodge Dakota and Jeep Grand Cherokee have a similar airbag system. For 1994, the Colt, Summit, Colt Vista, and Summit Wagon are also equipped with a driver's side airbag with a pyrotechnic inflator. The passenger side continues to use a motorized seatbelt. The Colt Summit system is a new design that uses 2 sensors to detect impact, an analog G sensor and a safing G sensor. Both these sensors are located in the ACM, which is also called the SRS Diagnostic Module, or SDU, in the Colt Summit Service Manual. The analog G sensor is an accelerometer that senses deceleration electronically. The safing G sensor uses a moving contact and a fixed contact to sense deceleration mechanically. If the impact is great enough at both sensors, the airbag will deploy. The ACM is located under the rear console assembly. The connectors at the airbag control module have a double lock mechanism consisting of a primary lock on each connector and a secondary lock on the ACM that retains all connectors. When the double lock mechanism is engaged properly, it is verified electronically by the ACM. The first cavity is for the 2-way connector for the clock spring and squib. The second and third cavities are open. The fourth cavity is for the 14-way connector, which contains a number of circuits. Pin 9 is the circuit to the data link connector. Pins 11 and 12 provide ignition voltage. Pins 13 and 14 are for the airbag readiness lamp. Pins 19 and 20 provide ground. To get diagnostic trouble codes, you'll need to use the scan tool. Be sure the ignition is off before connecting or disconnecting the scan tool. The data link connectors for the 1994 MMC Y adapter are located under the instrument panel near the left-hand kick panel. Diagnostic trouble codes are provided in section 23B of the Colt Summit Service Manual. When a Colt, Summit, or Stealth airbag deploys due to a collision, the following parts should be replaced: the ACM, airbag module, clock spring, and the steering wheel and steering column assembly. For more information on the Colt Summit Supplemental Restraint System, see section 23B in the service manual. And whenever servicing this system, be sure to follow the procedures provided. Before we move on, here's a question on the Colt Summit airbag system. Where is the ACM located on Colt Summit vehicles? A, under the rear console. B, under the driver's seat. C, under the instrument panel. The answer is A. The ACM is located under the rear console. In the event of a frontal collision, airbags deploy following a specific sequence of events. In a 3-sensor system, at least 2 sensors must close: the safing sensor in the ACM and at least one of the impact sensors at the front of the vehicle. There are 3 possible sources of current for each airbag: one to the energy reserve capacitor, one to the ignition run-start circuit, and one to the ignition run-only circuit. The capacitor in the ACM provides current whether the battery fails or not. If the capacitor fails, the 2 ignition circuits will deploy the airbag. When the circuit is closed, current is sent to the squib in the airbag, and the airbag inflates. Even though there are differences in airbag systems, all of them have an airbag control module. The airbag control module, or ACM, has a number of functions. It monitors the system to determine its readiness. It contains a sensor or sensors that detect impact. It has energy reserve capacitors to activate the squib. It contains onboard diagnostics. And it illuminates the airbag readiness lamp. On most Chrysler vehicles, the ACM is located under the instrument panel or center console near the center line of the vehicle. Refer to the Vehicle Service Manual or Body Diagnostic Procedures Manual for the exact location. All ACMs have a small and a large connector. The small connector is for the airbag squib. The large connector contains circuits for ignition, feed, and ground, the airbag readiness lamp, circuit to the data link connector or C2D bus, circuits to the airbag impact sensors on 3 sensor systems, and the circuit to the airbag pressure switch on systems with hybrid airbags. On 3 sensor systems, impact sensors are located in the left and right front corners of the vehicle. The third sensor, called a safing sensor, is inside the ACM. On the Minivan's single point system and Colt and Summit 2 sensor system, the sensor or sensors are inside the ACM. One safeguard built into the system to prevent accidental deployment is a shorting clip installed in every squib circuit connector. A shorting clip prevents electrical potential from developing in the squib from static charges and radio frequency noise. Squib wiring is also twisted for the same reason. The airbag module itself consists of an inflator assembly with a squib, a bag, mounting plates and housing, and a protective cover. Hybrid airbag modules contain pressure cylinder with internal switch in addition to other components. A clock spring assembly in the steering column on the driver airbag provides continuity from the steering column to the airbag squib. The passenger airbag is wired directly to the ACM. An airbag readiness lamp is located in the information center or cluster depending on the vehicle. When the ignition switch is first turned on, the lamp illuminates for about 7 seconds to test the readiness lamp function. When a diagnostic trouble code is set, the lamp comes on and stays on. When a diagnostic trouble code is intermittent, the lamp will come on for a minimum of 12 seconds and go off if the trouble goes away. A diagnostic trouble code is also present if the lamp fails to illuminate or illuminates intermittently. You can get diagnostic trouble codes for the airbag system using the scan tool. It provides you with active codes and stored codes. An active code indicates an ongoing malfunction. An active code cannot be erased until the reason for the code has been corrected. Stored codes indicate that there was an active code in the past. However, the stored code may not be present as an active code at this time. The code is stored with the cumulative or total time in minutes that it was active and the number of times the ignition has been cycled since the problem was last detected. Stored codes can be erased with the scan tool. The scan tool is connected to the C2D bus or separate ACM data link connector depending on the vehicle. You will be asked by the scan tool for the type of connection you are making. Vehicles that use the bus diagnostic connector are the Minivan, LeBaron Convertible, Concorde, Intrepid, Vision, New Yorker, LHS, Ram Pickup, and Dakota. On the Spirit, Acclaim, LeBaron 4-door, Shadow, and Sundance, the ACM data link connector is on the right side of the ACM. On the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the data link connector is on the passenger side near the center console. On Colt and Summit vehicles, the data link connectors for the 1994 MMC Y adapter are under the instrument panel near the left-hand kick panel. On the Dodge Stealth, the data link connector is located left of the center console under the instrument panel. That's a quick look at the components and operation of an airbag system. We're going to look at the passive seatbelt system next, right after this review question. Which electrical circuit is wired through the smaller connector at the ACM? A, airbag squib. B, airbag readiness lamp. C, ignition, feed, and ground. The answer is A. The 2-way or 4-way connector is for the airbag squib. A motorized passive shoulder belt is designed to automatically secure itself when the ignition is on and the door is closed. In Chrysler vehicles, the motorized belt is used on the passenger side in the Spirit, Acclaim, LeBaron 4-door, Sundance, and Shadow. The passive belt system consists of the following components: a track and drive assembly with carrier, a shoulder belt retractor assembly, and a passive seat belt module, or PSBM. The purpose of the system is to position the carrier in its rear position in the lockbox when the ignition switch is on and the door is closed. The carrier travels in a track mounted to the A-pillar, roof rail, and B-pillar. The shoulder belt emergency release buckle is attached to the carrier. A drive cable runs from the carrier on the track to the motor located in the lower B-pillar. The shoulder belt retractor is located in the center console. On vehicles without a center console, it's on the inboard side of the seat. The PSBM controls the system, activates the seatbelt drive motor, and the seatbelt warning lamp. The PSBM uses the lamp to indicate when the carrier is not properly seated in the lockbox, or the shoulder belt is not extended and connected to the carrier. The PSBM has a built-in diagnostic routine that assists in identifying faults. The PSBM is located behind the right-hand kick panel on the Spirit, Acclaim, LeBaron 4-door, Sundance, and Shadow. There are two connectors in the module, a 21-way and a 10-way connector. System inputs are the A-pillar front and B-pillar rear carrier limit switches, shoulder belt retractor switch, right front door jamb switch, speed sensor signal, ignition on signal, and battery feed. Front and rear limit switches tell the PSBM the position of the carrier in the track assembly. The shoulder belt switch in the retractor tells the PSBM if the shoulder belt is attached to the carrier. When the belt is extended at least 30 inches from its stowed position, the circuit is opened. The right front door jamb switch tells the PSBM if the door is open or closed. The vehicle's speed sensor signal supplies the PSBM with an alternating open and closed circuit whenever the vehicle moves. This keeps the carrier in the lockbox at the rear position if the passenger door jamb switch fails, or if the door jamb switch circuit is closed in a collision. The speed sensor signal also moves the carrier to the lockbox if the door is open and the vehicle is moving 3 or more miles per hour. Direct battery feed is provided through a 30-amp circuit breaker. An ignition on signal is provided through a 5-amp fuse. The module is grounded at the right side kick panel. Passive seatbelt system outputs are the motor, seatbelt warning lamp, and data link connector. The motor is an integral part of the track assembly. It drives the carrier using two relays located inside the PSBM. One causes the motor to move the carrier forward. The other moves the carrier rearward. The seatbelt warning lamp circuit lights the lamp when the carrier is not fully seated in the lockbox or the shoulder belt is not extended at least 30 inches. The lamp also illuminates for 6 to 8 seconds when the vehicle is started and the system is functioning properly. The PSBM also communicates with the scan tool through the data link connector. The PSBM data link connector for the Shadow and Sundance is located near the module in the right side kick panel. The PSBM data link connector on the Spirit, Acclaim, and LeBaron 4-door is located under the ACM bracket. In case of a system malfunction, an auxiliary tip is provided in the glove box that can be installed in the lock box at the B-pillar. The belt can then be unbuckled from the carrier and buckled into the auxiliary tip. To remove the auxiliary tip manually, push the rollover hook to the side and lift the auxiliary tip up. Be sure to return the auxiliary tip to the glove box. The Passive Restraint Diagnostic Manual provides all procedures required to correctly diagnose a malfunction in the system. Diagnostic trouble codes can be read using the scan tool. Codes for the passive belt system are active only when the ignition is on. They are not stored when the ignition is turned off. In addition to diagnostic trouble codes, you can check some of the system's inputs and outputs, including the buckle switch, the B-pillar switch, the A-pillar switch, the door jamb switch, the speed sensor, the ignition switch, and the lamp output. You can also perform some actuator tests. The seatbelt motor can be actuated in reverse and in forward. The seatbelt warning lamp can also be actuated. Before we move on, I've got a question for you. Where is the PSBM located on the Shadow, Sundance, Spirit, and Acclaim? A, under the center console, B, under the passenger seat, or C, behind the right kick panel? The answer is C. The PSBM is located behind the right kick panel. The passive seatbelt system requires periodic lubrication. With Mopar passive restraint track grease, do not use other lubricants. They may not be compatible. The carrier slot should be lubricated at 12 points along the length of the track. The secondary contact surface should be lubricated at 6 points along the length of the track. Cover the seat prior to greasing the track and keep grease away from all soft trim. With the ignition switch in the on position, disconnect the shoulder belt buckle from the carrier and allow the buckle to fully retract. The carrier will move to the B pillar position. Apply a 1/4 inch dot of grease at each lubrication point. Connect the shoulder belt to the carrier. With the door open, the carrier will move forward. Open and close the door several times and allow the carrier to move back and forth to distribute the grease. The track should be lubricated once per year or every 15,000 miles, whichever comes first. The track and drive assembly attaches to the body at 7 points across the door opening and down the B pillar. The motor is part of the assembly and not serviced separately. If you have to check the harness connectors or replace the track and drive assembly, you'll have to remove the A and B pillar trim. Why might you have to replace the track assembly? One reason it might be replaced is because of a collision. We're going to provide you with highlights of the track removal procedure on a LeBaron 4-door. Some of the differences between this procedure and that of the Sundance and Shadow 2-door are also explained in this month's Mastertech reference book. To remove the track, start by releasing the snap-over joint between the A-pillar and roof rail molding and B-pillar molding. Remove the A-pillar and roof rail molding. To remove the B-pillar molding, you'll need to remove the rear roof rail molding, the front door scuff plate, and the rear door scuff plate. Now remove the B-pillar trim panel from the B-pillar. You now have access to the electrical connector for the motor, A-pillar switch, and B-pillar switch. To remove the track and drive assembly, begin by disconnecting the wiring connector at the motor. Next, remove the drive motor attaching nut. Remove the 2 cable guide tube attaching screws and remove the 3 track attaching screws. Finally, remove the lockbox bolt. The track and drive assembly can now be removed. The assembly must be handled carefully. The lockbox provides the best handle for balance and also avoiding damage to the track and switch leads. When installing the track and drive assembly, the bolts and screws must be installed in the proper order to prevent the track from binding. Install the drive motor to the body by holding the motor bracket. Tighten the mounting nut to 15 foot-pounds. Position the lockbox to the body using the hook on the lockbox. Hand start the lockbox bolt. Install the forwardmost track attaching screw and tighten to 30 inch-pounds. Install the upper A-pillar and roof rail track attaching screws. Torque the upper A-pillar attaching screw to 30 inch-pounds and the roof rail attaching screw to 17 inch-pounds. Tighten the lockbox bolt to 29 foot-pounds. Install the cable guide tube attaching screws and tighten to 17 inch-pounds. Connect the wiring connector. Test the system to be sure it's operating properly. Then replace the A and B pillar trim. That's the passive seatbelt system used on Chrysler vehicles. Now for our final review question. What steps should be performed first when installing the track and drive assembly? A, install the drive motor. B, install the lockbox. Or C, install the forwardmost track attaching screw. The answer is A. You should install the drive motor mounting nut first. In this program on passive restraints, we've described the type of system each Chrysler vehicle is using, how these systems work, and we provided you with some service and diagnostic information. If you want to know more, Chrysler Service Training provides an excellent course on vehicle safety systems. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next month on Mastertech.